Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to explore an exciting topic. What is a sale? Make sure to watch till the end, because you'll discover something new and interesting that might just change the way you think. Let's dive right in. What is sale? A sale today generally represents the transference of money from one party to another. Although in old times, when barter was the method of exchange, it may have entailed the exchange of one class of merchandise for another. Salesmanship affects nearly every aspect of life. The actor sells himself to the public. The novelist meets or creates the demand for a certain class of literature. The solicitor sells his knowledge of legal principles. The artist his skill in draftsmanship and his interpretation of beauty. In fact, selling is a continuous process, from the newspaper vendor at the street corner to the prospective employee who sells his capabilities to his employer. The field, however, with which I intend to deal in particular, is what may be called salesmanship proper, that is, the selling and marketing of goods to the general public. This immediately brings to mind the sales assistant in the shop and the commercial traveler on the road, but they represent only one small part of the whole. Some tie-in, even in a book of this limited scope, must be devoted to sales by post, to advertising, and to what is perhaps the best salesman of all, presentation. So important is selling by post that probably the bulk of all exports are sold in this way. And although many people may find it hard to believe, perhaps half of our home trade is the direct result either of sales letters, catalogs, or prospectuses. Within recent years, many successful firms have applied a great deal of research in their selling activities. And while this particular aspect of salesmanship will be dealt with at greater length later in the book, its supreme importance will be appreciated when it is emphasized that unless new sales methods eventually result in a profit, the firms are bound to fail. Unless the concern is run by a government department at a loss, every organization, great or small, must eventually depend for its existence and new capital on the amount of money flowing in. And since invoices follow orders, it is hardly necessary to stress the vital importance of marketing. Up to 1913, and to some extent after that date, as the world's leading manufacturing country, our need for expert salesmanship was not so great as it is today because in many fields we virtually possessed a monopoly of production, and this position was exemplified by the attitude of many manufacturers and exporters at that time. These are our goods, take them or leave them. All that has changed. With the rise of Germany and America in the early part of this century as manufacturing countries, and with increasing competition from Japan and elsewhere, marketing and selling could no longer be regarded as a side issue of production. Indeed, they must be included as a vital part of any firm, if it is to succeed today. The many new inventions and productions radar, television, jet propulsion, plastics, bakelite, nylon goods, electrical equipment provide expanding opportunities for selling skill because only in this way is expansion possible. It is probably true that the average buyer, i.e. ultimately the average consumer, is lazy and does not like change. It is, therefore, the responsibility of the sales and publicity departments in a newer industry to stimulate interest and create demand. With the advent of many new materials, however, there is always the danger that the older ones may in time be squeezed out. As an illustration of this, plywood has been in competition with solid timber. The suppliers of the older materials must, therefore, tone up their selling organizations if they are to remain in business. It very often happens that the older material is superior, and if the selling organization is active, there should be little to fear from competition. Indeed, it is through competition that the various advantages of the different materials are sorted out, and in the end there is progress. To continue the argument of a new material or method ousting an old one, a few examples will show that this does not always happen. When plywood first came onto the market, great fears were expressed as to the future of the trade in solid timber. But what has happened? The introduction of plywood for wardrobe panels, radio sets, and the like so reduced the cost that the demand for these items multiplied to the extent that greater quantities of solid timber were needed for the frames and parts for which plywood is unsuitable. About 1935, with the advent on a large scale in this country of the paper-covered book selling at 6D. In those days, Many publishers of cloth-bound books felt that they would soon be out of business. Instead, in practice, the cheaper-priced books so encouraged reading that the total demand for books of all kinds was probably increased. Many examples could be given, and often what happens is that new materials create demand for new merchandise, and that demand frequently encourages the use of the older, tried and proven materials. As a result of our former preeminence as a manufacturing country, there is a tendency to look down on the sales representative and to underestimate his import. Ants. The very word touting for orders implies a generally disrespectful attitude towards the commercial traveler, while jokes at his expense are almost as common as quips about mothers-in-law. Even today, there are businessmen who treat their customers in one way and the travelers who call upon them in quite another. Such people have failed to realize that their own success depends almost entirely upon the goods which a representative can offer them. It is certainly beyond question that the salesman's job is of the greatest importance and one which calls for a high standard of knowledge and skill. In the majority of trades, the sales department is the most important, and a comparison of the earnings of, say, the clerical staff with the higher remuneration of the salesman is merely the outward indication of that importance. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. Don't go out looking through the window. Just subscribe and come in through the door.